Hey, friend. Welcome to the Human Design Diaries, a soul aligned sisters podcast. Here we will delve into the fascinating world of human design. In this series, we'll cover the basics, dive deep into the gates and channels, and share plenty of laughs and magic. Join us as we explore how human design can guide you to live a more soul aligned life. Get ready for insightful conversations full of practical tips and insights to help you on your journey. Let's explore.
For those who are watching who maybe are meeting us for the first time, you want to get us started?
Sure. So I'm Becky Wiley. I am the older and, as I like to say, not wiser sister. um, Mainly because I am a little bit more free flowing with life, or it used to be, anyways. I'm a Leo sun. I am a um, Libra rising, and I'm a Scorpio moon. So, yeah, fun placements. Astrology is one of my favorite things. But human design, when you helped me discover it, totally shifted my whole. I feel like astrology is one of those things that helps you like sort of like experience life, and human design taught me how to approach life in a way that helped me be more at ease and more, in soul alignment, which is sort of like our goal generally is to help
Our
people find.
jam. It's our
Yeah,
jam.
it's our jam. We love helping people find alignment. So,
Yes.
yep, that's me.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Becky. No, we've known each other forever. Well, I'm Jill Robinson. I am the little sister, if you will, 2 years younger than Becky. In terms of my background, I actually am, or was, I should say was, it's no longer true, was a practicing attorney. I did legal technology work for a long time, and I left full-time work in 2019 to find something else work related that felt more true for me, that felt like I was serving, that felt like I was helping people. And I didn't know what that would be. But as I took some time away and really, kind of dug in on what I really wanted to do, which I felt like I had put on hold for so long, I discovered human design. And you and I have always been into the woo woo stuff, like forever since we were little, right?
Uh, yeah, it's in our family. Our
Right.
family is like that Catholic family that also is from Appalachia and is super witchy. So,
Right.
yes, we've had a full spectrum since we were little kids on
Hmm.
ideas around spirituality and God and our relationship to the earth and things like that. So,
Hmm. Yeah. So having some more time in my schedule allowed me to pursue something like human design. And to be honest, this is very typical me. What I really loved about human design at first, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting. Like, it seems true. I had a reading done and I was like, this feels accurate for me. But also I knew that I could like get up and running quickly, right? I could like learn what I needed to learn and then start applying it right away. And so that really drew me to it. And so I've been studying it and sharing it since 2021. And I studied under Karen Curry Parker, who is an original student of Ra Uru who invented the system in the 1980s. She created a system, like a version of human design called quantum human design. And quantum human design is it's very similar to traditional human design. It just has some differences around energy interpretations. And I think, what I would say to anybody who's investigating their design or looking into their chart is to know that like everybody has different energy interpretations. There's not one particular source, and there's not one true answer for like any of the aspects of the chart. This modality, I think, in its most powerful form, should really be used to interrogate your own beliefs, to take in something that somebody else tells you. Like, for example, me, if I tell you something in a chart reading session, for you to really think about that, about how it applies to you or doesn't, or how you understand it or how you experience it, which might be different than how it's described. So it's really a self-awareness tool that is, the purpose of it is to allow you to know yourself better and to find your most authentic expression. And in finding your most authentic expression, hopefully you start to feel more comfortable being that authentic self and knowing that that's actually what you're here to do. You're here to be who you are. So that's sort of my approach to human design. Like I said, I am trained in quantum human design. So I will go back and forth with the terminology. There's some difference in languages, in the language, there's some differences in the energy interpretations. And I sort of use my intuitive knowing to figure out which direction I want to go. But often, when we talk about this today, you'll hear me kind of go back and forth between some of the terms and things like that. And so that's just to be, you know, for you to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think, for some people, there a lot of people or a lot of things you see out there are mostly using the older traditional language.
Yeah.
And I think that when people start to discover the quantum language, they'll gravitate towards it because, I mean, for me, for example, like a generator.
Hmm.
I was kind of like, when I first heard that, I was like, I mean, what am I powering everyone? Like, I don't really
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Right.
but when you said actually the quantum language is alchemist, I was like, yes, yes.
Hmm.
I feel that. I feel that alchemist energy. I
Hmm.
absolutely feel that in my life. I feel that I am somebody who is kind of an alchemist for people. So I
Hmm.
love that. It was really empowering. The empowerment. I'm a certified and empowerment coach. I didn't mention that in my bio, but
Hmm.
but empowerment is a big thing for me. I love, and that's my incarnation cross is the cheerleader, which we'll get into
Hmm.
incarnation crosses essentially, but um, just the idea that like these things show up in my chart that I've always done. Like I've always been somebody who's like giving people pep talks and trying to help them find, their own like empowerment inside of them. So yeah, I'm excited to explore this with you.
And you're so great at that. That's like one of your really like important gifts that you're here to share, is your ability to work with someone to move them from a space of disempowerment to empowerment, if only for the moment, if
Yes.
only for like the conversation, right? To start at a place where they're feeling disempowered and essentially transmute that energy into an empowered sense of being for them, at least when they walk away from you. Whether they can maintain it is a different story, because there's a lot of things that come into play about why people feel disempowered. But that is one of your superpowers, I would say. Yeah, for sure. And your purpose. It's part of your
Yeah.
purpose. Hmm.
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think if you're ready, like we can just start digging into your chart. What do you think?
Let's do it. Hell
Okay.
yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So for those of you who are seeing a human design chart for the first time, I just want to give you a very brief window into what you're looking at. We have on our Teachable site, soulaligned sisters.teachable.com, introduction to human design course that's free. It's about 15 minutes long, and you can watch, and it will explain what all of this is that you're looking at and kind of what the system is at a very basic level. But since I'm sharing it here, I just want to kind of note a couple of things. So this here, where the person is, the outline of the person and the triangles and squares and diamonds, this is known as the body graph. All of these numbers and boxes on the right hand side of the screen in black are the gates in there's 64 gates in human design. these are the numbers are the gates, and this is where the planets were at the exact moment of birth. So this is more conscious energy. On the left side in the red, it's the same idea, but the planets in these gates appeared there about 3 months before birth. So this sort of sets the stage for life themes, energy themes. It The way it's all configured results in what's over here on the left, the type, authority, profile, definition, strategy, all that kind of stuff. So essentially, this over here is an interpretation of all of this over here. Okay. Now, the difference between the red and the black is just that where it's black, it's more conscious energy, maybe, and where it's red, there's maybe a little bit more veiled energy there. Although oftentimes people will sort of see these things in themselves when they're described. Where it's white, it means that you do not have definition there. You are bringing in the energy from around you, either from the planetary transits, from the people in your space. It doesn't mean that you don't experience that energy. You just experience it in a more varied way. So, one of the things that's super important to know going into exploring your design, and this is something that Karen Curry Parker says all the time, she like hammers it into her students, is we all have all of the chart. So anything that I tell you today, Becky, like you might say, oh, well, what about this thing? And I'll say, oh, well, that's not defined in your chart. That doesn't mean that you don't experience it. It means that you experience it in a varied way. It means that you experience it through your relationships. It just means that you don't have access to that energy consistently on your own. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, with that being said, let's take a look at this over here because this is where all the meat is. So, starting first with type, there's 5 types in human design, and your type is in traditional human design is known as the generator. In quantum human design, we will call you the alchemist, which we already talked about. And alchemist is a little bit more of an empowering word, like you said. And so I like to use that. I just think it sounds cooler. And also like what I'm an Gen X. So I'm familiar with the alchemist from like 90s hip hop. So that always comes into my mind for some reason.
Yep.
So did you say same?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
type is kind of the first place where we can understand what are we doing here in this world? Like what is our purpose? What are we trying to accomplish? Like are we supposed to be doing something? And so type does have purpose kind of as part of it. And for an alchemist or a generator type, your purpose is to sort of do the work of the world and develop mastery. And what does that mean? Essentially, you show us what does it mean to show up, to put in the effort towards something, to sort of stay committed, to stick around long enough to really get good at something, right? And it doesn't matter really what that thing is. It is a way of operating, it's a way of being, kind of a natural way of being that you will likely use to approach any aspect of your life, whether it's a hobby or whether it's building a home, or like having your household like put together, whether it's career, whether it's relationships. Like it's really a consistent energy that allows you to put in effort on a consistent basis. This comes from having a defined sacral center, which is here. The sacral center is the energy center where we hold workforce and life force energy. And when it is defined or colored in as it is here, then that means you have consistent access to your own workforce and life force energy. That, however, does not mean that you can't burn out. So, literally, I would say it's nearly 100% of people I talk to, regardless of what their human design type is, have experienced burnout. So is that true for you too? Have you experienced burnout?
I mean, I don't think you can exist in American society without having experienced this at some point. Like, especially if you are working in corporate America. But even, outside of that, people who are, like maybe they're caregivers for their kids, their family, that you can get burned out from that. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
anything that you're doing and pushing through um, can result in burnout. Even if it's
Mm-hmm.
something you really love, you can get burned out
Yes.
on it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a lot of factors at play, and some of it is here in the chart too. But what I will say is one of the biggest difference that I've been able to see or sort of understand through conversations with people about burnout is that people, the types, there's three types that do not have a defined sacral, meaning that they have less access to their own energy, like
Can you
consistent access.
can you show people
Oh,
where sacral is?
it's here,
Yeah. Okay.
right here. So the types who do not have a defined sacral, meaning it's white, they don't have consistent access to their own workforce and life force energy. They can borrow it from other people. They can kind of fake it till they make it for a while, but eventually they will like be tapped out of energy. And oftentimes that can actually manifest because we're not good at listening to our body when it's telling us to stop. It can manifest for those folks as like physical illnesses, like physical disease, kind of manifest, not like diseases necessarily. Could be like autoimmune or whatever, but there's something physical that their body is going through as a result of burnout. For the generator types, which is the alchemist or generator and the manifesting generator or time bender in quantum human design, that's you and me, I'm a manifesting generator, have the defined sacral. We don't experience it in the same way always. So, most of the time, what I hear from generator types is like they will experience burnout, but it's not that they have like no energy. It's not that they can't do anything on the weekends. It's that they are bored. They are like, wondering, like having an existential crisis, like wondering, like, what am I doing? What is the purpose of all this? Having a difficult time, remaining committed to something, really just having this inner sense of like this isn't working, I like can't do this anymore. That's sort of what burnout feels like. It's not necessarily I'm in my bed all the time. So tell me, what was your particular experience when you were burned out? Like how did that manifest for you?
Well, I mean, for one, physically, I was extremely overweight for, what I was comfortable with. Um, I felt lethargic, but I also had, uh, I started developing arthritis, and I started having sciatica issues. I ended up in physical therapy. So that was where my body was telling me this is not working. And then emotionally and mentally, I've suffered from depression pretty much my entire life. And I developed anxiety probably in my 20s. And so, while I had, managed that with medication and therapy and things like that, I got to a point when I was burned out where nothing was helping me. And it was like literally, I mean, I was working remotely, also in the legal field. And it was like I had to just drag myself into my office every day. It felt like checking into like a golden cage, like where, I'm like imprisoned for, 10 to 12 hours a day. I mean, that's super dramatic, but I'm dramatic. So, but that's what it felt like to me at the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was a whole experience. It was physical, emotional, mental, like, and then spiritual as well. I think I had started to go through a spiritual awakening, but then once I really got into the depths of depression and anxiety, that's when really the like, what the hell am I supposed to be doing? Like this feels awful. What should I be doing? I feel like there's something else I need to be doing. And so that like little, I feel like everybody experiences that a little bit. like just sort of in the back of their head. It's just like a little record playing, like background music, and it just got turned all the way up when I was like in the throes of burnout.
Hmm.
So,
And
yep.
now let me ask you the opposite question, because alchemists or generators are going to be their most powerful, their most effective. They're going to like be really like in it and engaged and like putting forth all the effort and really like, you know, feeling connected to what it is that they're doing when they're doing something that they're passionate about. So, have you experienced, maybe you haven't, but have you experienced spending your energy on something that you're passionate about? And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how that impacts your ability to manage things that you don't love doing, or how it has helped with your burnout, or so tell me a little bit about what it's like for you to do work that you feel really good doing.
I mean, that's when I'm happiest. That's when I feel uh in flow,
Mm-hmm.
as they say. That's when I feel like I'm actually producing things. I have really worked hard to like sort of decolonize my brain when it comes to like how much I work, what's a significant amount of production in a day, things like that. And, when I'm in like a consulting contract and I'm working in corporate America, it helps me to be able to like, you know, work that role and show up and be doing things that I actually am good at and that I enjoy, like training new people or creating trainings, mentoring, guiding and leading, instead of actually like doing the like, you know, put your head down sort of grunt work, that is required. Not because I like think that I'm too good for that. Like I'll get in and do all of that. I mean, but when I'm doing things that I actually like, it leaves me with space to do other things that I enjoy. So, you know, when I am in a consulting role where I'm, getting to do the things that I'm really good at and passionate about, I'm also left with energy to then, turn around and put some of that back into our business. Um, and then when I'm just full time working on our business, that's when I'm happiest. Getting to be creative, getting to sort of, come up with an idea and then develop it and like, you know, create things around it. So, I would say, I don't know if that's answering the question, but,
Yeah.
when I feel, um, rested and when I feel that I, have space and time for things that I enjoy, I'm much happier. It makes the less exciting things like tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
When I know that I'll get to spend a lot more time doing, the things that I'm actually really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna stop my share for a second so we can just talk for another minute.
Okay.
The other thing I want to ask you about, so this is something that I've noticed. I haven't tested it yet. I'm like trying to figure out if it's true. But one of the things that I sometimes see with alchemists or generator types is this desire to just say yes, like the desire to always be the person who's like doing the thing, right? Like people come to you and they're like asking you to do something, you're like, yes, I'll do it, yes, okay. And that's all fine and good. I would argue maybe there's probably some no's in there, right? That you should be saying that you're not saying, that you're saying yes when you really mean no, which is how one of the ways we work ourselves into burnout. But I think the more like uh insidious thing that happens when you're a generator type and you're used to doing all of the work for everybody because you're good at it and you can get it done, and you know how to show us how to do that, is that you lose track of what you want. So I'll have these conversations like with people sometimes, and I'll be like, well, what do you want to do? Well, whatever you want to do. well, do you want to do this or that? And it's like, well, you choose. I'm fine with whatever you pick. And it's like, that's not what I'm asking you. So tell me, am I making this up? Is this false?
Oh, no, that's totally true. I used to like I don't know. I mean, what makes a people pleaser? We could
Yeah.
talk about that for like that could be like a whole episode.
Yes.
But I will say, yes, that's absolutely true. Um, and because we're relied on a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're a large part of the population, right? And
70%.
yeah. And so people rely on us to like do the work
Mm-hmm.
and push ideas and um projects and things like that to completion. We're relied on by the community, whatever community, like that could be your family, whatever. Um I absolutely, especially when I was younger and didn't have this awareness that I could say no.
Mm-hmm.
like you and I talk about generational like differences, and I know it's annoying, and but there's some truth to these things. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I think about like myself at like 20 something, I see how Gen Z is like, nah, I'm good, I'm not doing that. We didn't have that was not we didn't think that was an option. We didn't think
Mm-hmm.
that like if somebody from work came to us, or even somebody who was like an authority figure in our life came to us and asked us to do something or to work on something, we didn't think that the option to say no was available. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
very Gen X, we were raised by boomers, sort of like you put your head down and do the work. There's no saying no, like because I'm above you. But like this is why I love Gen Z, because they're like above me. Nah, we're equals. Like I don't want to do that
Mm-hmm.
shit,
Yeah.
which I love. Like that was like
Mm-hmm.
that was my inner self back in my 20s, like thinking to myself, like somebody's asking me to take on this filing project. And I'm like, I went and got my degree in paralegal studies to file. Like that my internal voice was saying that, but my external is like, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And, probably my true feelings at the end of it were sort of in the middle. Like, it was one of those things that I could, I guess, just get done for the group, but was it the best use of my skills and abilities? Probably not. And should I
Mm-hmm.
have said no, make a law clerk do that? Yeah, I should have.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're younger, you don't feel that no is available to you. So
Mm-hmm.
the older I
Yeah.
get, the more I say no to things I don't want to do. And it's still uncomfortable for me.
Yeah. Totally.
Still at almost 47.
Yeah. Yeah. I so one of the things that I really talk to all of my clients about, because it isn't just generators, but I notice it with generators, is that like we really have to start listening to ourselves. And so that takes us nicely into strategy and authority. So strategy and authority in human design are the really practical aspects of it, where it's like, oh, I learn how to actually be a different way, to honor my natural way of being in the world. If I follow strategy and authority, then maybe that allows me more ease, more flow, more pleasure, more happiness, more joy, more of the good things. It's not perfect, right? There's no magic bullet to living life on this planet. Like we have to practice, right? We have to like learn something and then try it and see how it's working for us. So strategy and authority is meant to be implemented. It really tells us strategy and authority together. They're different, but they go together. It really tells us, how do we make decisions and how do we decide where to engage our energy in the world. And spoiler alert, it's by listening to yourself. It is a body assessment. It's not even a brain assessment. Sometimes people, with some strategies, as some authorities will like need to like hear themselves talking. And so that might seem like it's a mental process, but it isn't. There's still a body knowing that we're trying to tap into. And as a generator type or an alchemist, your strategy is to wait to respond. So while you have the ability to, like, make something happen because you've been doing it forever, right? Like you can put the energy in to like do something and get good at it. Human design says actually you should wait. You should, if you have a great idea, that's good, but let it marinate for a little bit. And then you're watching for things outside of you to come into your awareness that tells you something about timing. So I'll give you an example. You and our cousins have been texting me nonstop about getting a kitten, right?
Yes, we have.
You're sending me pictures of the kitten. You're making sticker emoji things with the kitten's face on it.
I've named her already.
Yeah, okay. You've done it all, right? You're really putting the pressure on hard. But what you don't know is that before all of that started, I was like sitting on the couch and I was looking through Instagram. I was watching reels and I saw this reel of this big, like black lab cuddled up with a little bitty kitten. It was the cutest thing. It was like so adorable. And for those who don't know, I have a big brown dog. She's a boxer. The sweetest thing that could ever exist. She's like the best. So I'm watching this video and I'm like, oh my God, it's so cute. And I show Tim, my husband, I'm like, look how cute this is. Like, because we had kind of flirted with the idea of getting a kitten. And I'm like, look how cute this video is. And literally 10 minutes later, you guys start on this campaign to get me to adopt this kitten by text. You didn't know that I was thinking about this. You didn't know that like we had been talking about it. This isn't, I'm not out with that, right? I'm not encouraging anybody to talk me into getting a kitten. But this is an example of the external cue that comes when you, as a generator, have an idea, or a manifesting generator. This is true for manifesting generators too. You have an idea, you hold on it, you wait for the universe to bring you some sort of information that's related to your idea. That's what that was. I was having the idea of getting a kitten, and 10 minutes later, I get a text, right? So this happens very quickly. And then once you've received the external cue, you're checking in with your body. Is this something that I really want? How does it feel in my body? Does it feel like excitement? Does it feel like dread? Like, does it feel like a yes? Does it feel like a no? And this is where it gets a little bit hard because we are so disconnected from our bodies knowing. Like we work when we're sick. We don't take time off. We ignore our symptoms. We put them off forever and ever and ever until it becomes something that we can't manage anymore, right? We do not consider our body's feelings, what the senses in our bodies when we're making decisions. It's always the logic that we're using. So this is where it gets hard. This is an uncovering process. And for you, your inner authority is your sacral authority. This is, in the sacral center. Let me share the screen again. Again, right here. So this is like your gut feeling, your body's sense of yes or no. What I will say though is that through my own experience of my strategy and authority, I don't feel my body's yes in my gut. So what I tell people is like, it might be in your gut, it might not. It might feel like something else. For me, it's in my heart center. That's where I tap into my intuition. That's where I tap into my body's knowing. So tell me, Becky, are you tuned into your body's yes or no? And what does that feel like for you?
I think that I am. Uh, um, it's a tricky one. This is something tricky, and let's draw the line between two different kinds of decision making. One is like someone's coming to you about like work and wanting you to participate or take on a specific project. Um, you know, those are situations where you don't feel empowered to say no. Um, But then, I think over time you start to like develop a sense of like, how do I make the case for me not being this person who's like leading this? And most of the time it was me saying, I can assist, but I'm actually like, I'm at bandwidth right now. Um, in my personal life, I would say like I am definitely an immediate like gut reaction kind of person. Um, I think that, for some people, like feeling anxiety about saying yes to something may feel like a no. And perhaps sometimes it is a no. But for me, like, even if I feel like anxiety about something, um, that doesn't mean it's a no. Um,
Mhm.
it might just be something I have to overcome.
Mhm.
Like when I think about this, I think about like a decision to go on a retreat that is going to be with our friends in kinship, which is a spiritual community we're a part of. And it was like getting the opportunity to spend time with people from all over the US and some people who I had never met in person. I was immediately yes on that, but I also felt my anxiety start up, but I knew my anxiety is actually more about travel than it is about going to the event. So I think you have to get really good at like discerning between like a good anxiety, a bad anxiety, like because anxiety is there to keep us safe, right?
Mhm.
But what is this? What is this feeling? I know it's
Mhm.
not about seeing these people and spending time with these women. Um, I know that it's probably more related to my issues with travel, which usually comes down to like me always being worried I'm going to like miss a plane or
Mhm.
miss something, like time wise. So,
Mhm.
but I think that takes time to like figure out like
Mhm.
what is your yes, what is your no, and I think
Mhm.
I'm still figuring that out. I think because sometimes, and that's another thing, Jill. Like sometimes I think my immediate yes um does me all the way wrong. And
Mhm.
but then
Sometimes.
then I go down the philosophical like
Mhm.
pathway of like perhaps it was an immediate yes because this was an experience I needed to have, whether it was
Mhm.
good or not, or whether I could like place like a label on it as good or bad.
Mhm.
Either way, I got what I needed. I learned some lessons. I got some more perspectives. I figured out that maybe this is no longer for me or whatever it is.
Yep.
But sometimes I feel like our we are disconnected from our bodies, and so like trying to relocate that connection sometimes is like hard. It's really
Yeah,
hard.
it is hard. What I typically tell people is listen to yourself as often as it feels safe to do so. There will be times when it doesn't like you in your work example, like
Yeah.
you can't say no, even though you're like, hell no, I don't
Right.
want to do this. Like
Even though
it
they word
literally,
it like you have an option, you
yeah,
don't
no,
actually have an option.
you don't feel like you can say no,
Right.
and there's all kinds of reasons for that. And so I would never say like push yourself out. Well, maybe push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, right? But if
Yeah.
you truly feel like, okay, I want to quit my job and I don't have anything lined up, but I don't know how I'm going to make my rent. So even though my body is saying quit your job, like I can't bring myself to do that. It doesn't feel safe to do that. Then don't do that, right?
Right.
It's okay, right? You don't there's nothing, we're not seeking perfection here. What we're hoping to accomplish by following our strategy and authority is that we're tuning into this sense of intuition and knowing that all of us have, that we have been disconnected from for a very long time. And so when people are just starting to kind of scratch the surface on this, I really recommend starting small. Like just use it to figure out what you're going to have for breakfast, right? Make it no risk whatsoever to you. And just start the process of tuning into what your body wants. And then you can pay attention to what your head is telling you. And I think that's an interesting observation to make. Like your brain is talking you out of, going like stopping at the donut shop on your way to work, right? But your body is like, I really want a donut, like with the chocolate icing on top of the glaze. I want that. It's going to be fresh. It's going to be delicious. So in that instance, it's like, go have the donut, like go get it, right? Teach your body that you're going to start listening to it, that you're going to honor what it wants. And then you can start building on that. But you don't have to start with big things. Start with small things first. That's what I say. And you're right about anxiety. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. There's all kinds of things that kind of flood in that can make it hard for you to discern the truth of what it is. And sometimes our yeses lead us into challenges that are there for our growth. And like you will think at the end, did I get it wrong? And maybe
Yeah.
you did. Maybe you talked yourself into something, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe you actually got it right. And maybe it was exactly what you needed. And that takes, some introspective work, that takes some mindset shifting work to really come to that understanding where you can see a bad experience is actually good for you in some way. But yeah, it's not a foregone conclusion that your hell yes is going to go great. It just isn't. That's just like I speak from experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have to be willing to do the introspective work to actually shift that perspective into, okay, it's not that I shouldn't trust myself to make the right decisions for me. It's that I have to be more aware that, sometimes things don't work out the way that we envision. They
Mm-hmm.
work out the way they're supposed to. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, you have to like sort of just take it with a grain of salt that, like, even if it's something that excited you at first, it might actually be there to like teach you a lesson,
Right.
or show you something about yourself.
Right.
That doesn't mean you can't trust, you can't trust your own instincts, but it's more about like sometimes your decisions are going to, I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Like, that's my opinion. We're here to learn, we're here to experience, the things that our soul needs. And
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that even the bad experiences have, taught me things and
Mm-hmm.
contributed to who I am today.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Very wise, sister. Very
Well,
wise.
going into my crone zone.
You are. You're very close.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit today about type. We've talked about strategy and authority specifically for generators or alchemist types. I think it might be fun now to pivot to, I mean, there's other basics like your profile and, incarnation cross is not really a basic, but, that kind of goes into purpose. Like, we could talk about those things, but maybe it would be fun to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the mystical things in your particular chart. I have a few that I want to call out for you and then get your reaction to them.
Oh,
What do you
hell
think?
yeah. I'm always interested in the mystic. You know this.
Yes. So here's the thing I will say before I share your chart again, we are all intuitive.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're looking at your chart and you're like, oh, I don't have gate 57. Like, that means I'm not psychic. No, it doesn't. Doesn't mean that. It does not mean that. Intuition is all over the chart. Intuition is, think of intuition like another sense that we have, right? it's
Yes.
our it's our knowing, it's our body's knowing. We all have access to that. So whether or not you have these channels or the gates or whatever that I'm about to talk about is not relevant to what is possible for you. You can develop any skill that you want to. You can be any type of person you want to be. You can work any kind of job you want to. There's nothing in the chart that is meant to limit you and limit what is possible for you. Okay. So that's my
Okay.
disclaimer. Let
I
me
like it.
share. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start first talking about gate 12. And the reason I want to start at gate 12 is right here off of the throat center. right here. You have it twice in your chart. You can see you have it in red and black. So in in the conscious area, it's here. This is Mars. And in unconscious, it's in your moon placement.
Okay.
So I'm not going to talk about that stuff. That's, I mean, there's information that you can find there, but it's not relevant to our conversation today. But gate 12 is often referred to, and I think it's maybe even named in traditional human design as the gate of the channel. So this is essentially an energy that's almost like connected to like your higher self, or like somewhere out there, out there, in there. I don't know how you want to put it. Super conscious, like into the sort of, connected to source, however you want to put it. It is an energy that can be connected to like a higher mind, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks. It's got it's an because it's in the throat, and our throat center is where we hold like the energy for communication and manifestation. This is a verbal energy. It essentially, like, it can kind of look like it can look like different things, but in the sort of mystical route, this is actually a channel. This is the ability to channel somebody, another being, another consciousness, something like that. It is literally like a channeling sort of ability. And especially when the throat center is open or white, that's especially true for those who have gate 12 defined but with their throat center open. So there's this aspect of being able to sort of pull information from someplace else and speak it. But most commonly, the way that this is experienced by people is when they have this defined, they'll find themselves saying something like incredibly profound, or saying something and they're like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know who came up with that, but saying something to somebody in a way that really impacts them, in a way that might shift their perspective on something, in a way that might move them to like change directions on something. So the ability to say something that really reaches deep into their soul. It's a very like bold, it can be very persuasive, charming. It's a really strong and powerful energy, but the timing has to be correct. If you are not with the right people in the right time, then you're likely, if you're able to articulate it, it might fall flat. It might be not heard. You might not be honored for the wisdom that you're sharing, or you may not even be able to articulate it. Like, you might feel like, I want to say something. There's something here that I need to talk about, but I can't find the words. That is an indicator that timing is not correct. So let me pause there and hear your reflections about this energy in your chart.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think from, old, like again, just talking about like aging, the wisdom that comes with experiencing life. I can look back and think about times where I just had to say something and I said it and it was shocking, or someone, then put me in a like a category as like, a troublemaker, or, you know, I think we both have the gift of asking questions that challenge authority. So I like, again, like this is why we also do a lot of career coaching, because I think a lot of the, experiences we both had in like corporate America, and specifically the legal field, was that like sometimes you have to really like keep your mouth shut because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise it's going to cause you problems. I think
Mm-hmm.
as before when I was younger, I would just flat out say like, you're doing X, Y, and Z wrong, leadership. Like, you guys are morons. You don't understand what it's like to like work and be the worker bees anymore, which I still, and I still have that sort of like perspective. But as I've aged or whatever, I've grown to be more compassionate. And then, also like instead of like feeling the need to force my opinions, or like feeling the need to like, I gave them all of this information and feedback and perspective and they refuse to use any of the wisdom I gave them, would lead into frustration. So instead of doing that, I think you taught me like, look at it as like planting seeds for people. You may not be around to see it grow later, but if you can think of it as more planting seeds and come with a more like, thought out and ready to deliver message, people are more likely to receive it. But even in my personal life, I definitely see this. I think sometimes I say things to friends that, um, you know, it shakes them. Like
Mhm.
whether like in a way to help them, shift into a different perspective. I'm thinking about the example of, going to lunch with a friend who was telling me about, this dream that she had about like, her loved ones on the other side. And when she described it to me, like all I said was, that wasn't a dream, that was a visitation. And she just immediately was like in tears. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I didn't mean to, like,
Upset
but
you. Yeah.
yeah, like I didn't want to upset you. I was just giving you my observation. But she was just like, no, that was, now that I like think about it, like that was so profound. Like, I really needed to hear that from somebody. I felt that, but I didn't, dare to like say it. And so like the older I get and the less like veiled my spiritual side is, the more I see this impact that I have on people. Because I do feel like sometimes I say things and I'm like, what?
Where did that come
What?
from?
That didn't even like, what are those words I use? That didn't even
Hmm.
sound like me.
Yeah.
Sometimes things just come out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
or someone will say, like, you said this to me, I will never forget that. And I'll be like, I don't remember that shit at all. Like, I don't remember saying that to you. Like that, wow, that is pretty profound.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah.
That is the energy of the 12 for sure.
Okay. I
And
love
so
that.
what I would say too is that if you are interested in pursuing channeling as a spiritual gift,
Mhm.
then the energy is here supporting you in that. It's already at work.
Yeah.
You're already learning the lessons around it. It's already happening to you. You don't
Hmm.
necessarily think about it because you're not sitting down saying, I'm going to channel, the like whoever, I don't know, whoever you're connecting to, whatever it is. You don't, it's not like an intentional thing, but it's happening nonetheless. So if you want to put some intention around it, this might be a skill that you're able to develop and use to better support people, however you want to use it, for funsies, whatever it is. Okay, so let's switch gears. I want to talk about gate 57. Gate 57 is here off the spleen center. And let me just say the spleen center itself is the center for intuition, survival, and timing. That's where we hold the energy. So every single gate, this is the gates are the numbers. Every single gate in the spleen center has an element of intuitiveness in it. Okay, so whatever, maybe the energy is like, you would think it has nothing to do with anything mystical, there is an aspect of intuition that is involved in it. But I want to talk specifically about 57 because gate 57 is the most intuitive gate in human design. Gate 57 is psychicness. It's about being able to sort of see the future. It comes with a shadow of fear of the future, and it can be, I recently heard Karen describe this as like, a lot of times people with gate 57 do not recognize themselves to be psychic because it is so like integrated. into the design. It's so integrated into the life experience that people don't really know. Not everyone. I don't want to say no one notices it, but a lot of people don't know this about themselves. Like they don't think about it. And so they might seem like, oh, well, I'm just like, I just see what everybody like. Why don't other people see this? Like, it's very clear to me. Like, it's like your energy reads, right? Like, that is the psychicness that's at play there, right? Like, you're psychically interpreting like what is to come. But what you're saying when I hear you describe it is like, I'm just like paying attention to what's going on around me, essentially. That is what people with gate 57 have told me before. They're like, they don't understand that to be like psychic in any way, but it is psychic. And so because it's so ingrained, it can be difficult. There can be some tension around really trusting yourself and trusting your knowing and trusting what you understand to be true. And it's in the moment. It is not like, oh, I'm gonna like sort of like plan for something, right? It's more so like in this moment, I psychically know whether or not this idea is going to work, or whether or not like we can go down this path, or how this might turn out, or what is to come, right? It is a very like in the moment sort of sense. So tell me about your gate 57 experience. Tell me about your psychicness. Do you recognize yourself to be psychic, or are you playing it off like, I just pay attention?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, yes. And I think, I've had enough experiences in my life um, to know I absolutely sometimes can see exactly what the future holds. And I don't typically, I guess in certain groups of friends or people that I know, certain communities where I feel comfortable saying, like I psychically picked up on this. But I don't really use that. I more say like I just this is how I read it, or this is what I see. For me, like a lot of it is like I am more like someone will tell me, for instance, like they're expecting to, have a party on a certain day, or like they're going to do this event, and I can literally see whether or not it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, usually I'm right. But I guess maybe I should turn it around on you and be like, you know me better than anybody else on this planet. What do you think? Do you think I have like these psychic abilities? Have I predicted things that you didn't see coming? Or, like, I don't know. What do you think as my
Yeah.
sister?
Yeah, I do think so. And I do think that the way in which you're drawn to it is an indicator that there's something there for you. That's what I would say. So the thing about being psychic, it's kind of hard because I think people who feel like they're psychic, or sometimes like they might kind of want to like admit that to themselves, but then they're constantly testing their own psychicness, right? They're
Oh, yeah.
constantly like saying like, oh, I'm going to see if this is true. I'm going to see if I'm good enough. I'm going to see if what I know to be true is validated. But what you don't understand is that, or maybe what people don't always consider, is that like actually telling the future is kind of hard, because there's so much at play, right there. And as soon as
Free
you
will.
verbalize something, right, as soon as you verbalize something to somebody, like the energy shifts around it. So who knows what ends up happening. Maybe you tell somebody, I don't really think this thing is going to happen, or I don't really think we're going to end up going to this event. And then the response from the person is, I really want to go, and so I'm going to make sure that it happens, right? So in that sense, you can be like, oh, I was wrong, but maybe you weren't wrong. You were reading the energy of the moment, and the energy shifted. So I think the big lesson here with 57, and this is true for you and true for me, I also have gate 57. It's true for anybody with 57, to stop testing yourself and stop holding yourself to some sort of standard of like, is this true? Is it not true? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Stop with that. Trust yourself in the moment and know that like anything can happen like we only exist in the moment, right? The future isn't written yet. Anything can happen. And if you know something and it feels important to share that, then trust yourself. Trust your heart. Trust what you're trying to accomplish here. Stop putting like a litmus test on your accuracy, or like that stuff is not, I don't, I mean, if you want to become like, a huge, like, well-known psychic, then probably you're going to have to like be right a lot, right? But for most of us, that's not the path that we're going. It's really here to support us in knowing where do we put our energy, what do we like, what do we move towards, and what's not going to work, and how can we tell people like, hey, don't go that direction because that's not going to work, like let's try something different. That's the power of it, right? Is it's
Mhm.
guiding us in the moment and guiding our direction. It's not about like I'm predicting the future. That's my take.
No, I love that.
Okay, so the last one that I want to share with you, because we've been talking about this a little bit recently,
Okay.
just gonna highlight it for you, is the channel 15.5. I love this. I really love gate 15. I think gate 15 is super interesting. So, on one end, gate 15 up here in the identity center, um, it's the love of humanity. It's really about, it's also the gate of extremes. So, how do I put those two things together? I really think of this as like somebody who has the ability to reach out to the margins of humanity and to bring people into the fold, and through that process of reaching to the margins and bringing people in, we evolve the collective in a way that includes more people and more experiences. um it's also very like extreme in terms of patterns, habits, things like that. It can be hard to like hold a habit. Like you can have extremes in like how you're sleeping, or how you're eating, or what you're choosing to do with your time, those kinds of things. It can be hard. But you have gate 5, which offers the stability. Gate 5 is really about like a habitual pattern, being able to be on a schedule, like really feeling like routine is important. And so it helps to balance that 15 energy a little bit, but the 15 has an important role. This entire channel is very connected to the earth. And so you can think about this if you want to think about it in the context of the earth and like the planet, then you can understand that like we have seasons, right? Seasons are gate 5. Like we have like sort of, well, most people have seasons. We have seasons in the Midwest, right? And it's pretty reliable. Although it's changing, it's pretty reliable. We're going to have like, the same 4 seasons every year. And they're going to be about around the same time, right? That's the habitual pattern. And then gate 15, in terms of like the natural world, offers our like wildfires, our tornadoes, our hurricanes, the extreme elements of nature that kind of function to tear everything down to allow a rebuilding process. So both of those things are important parts of the natural world, and this energy is very tied to the natural world. So this energy of the 15.5 channel is like very mystical in nature. It's like fairies, gnomes, elementals, and somebody with a 15.5 may be able to communicate with animals. So tell us all your reaction to that. I'm gonna stop my share.
I mean, listen, I don't know. Like maybe it's probably a combination of many things, but we our dad, uh, we have always like noticed his connection to animals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we so much so that we nicknamed him Saint Francis. Like the dude can like really communicate with animals, like to the point where he has told us stories about being able to go out. He's talking to the birds and putting his finger out and having a random bird just land on his finger. I mean, or the squirrel that comes up to his door every day and knocks and he hand feeds it peanuts. We were talking last week and, he went to the UP, which is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And they went to a butterfly sanctuary. And when he told me the story about how he first walked in and he saw these beautiful blue butterflies and they were flying away, and he said he just said into the ethers, "Oh, come back, I'd love to see you," or something like that. And he said within like 30 seconds, two of them flew to him, landed on his shirt, and he said they stayed there for like 10 minutes as he walked around. um for me, that's like, I equate that to like I my husband jokes that everybody in our neighborhood must know that the witch lives on the corner, because we always have like random wildlife we live in, like, we're kind of outside of the city of Columbus, but we live in a suburb. We live in a neighborhood. We have a corner lot, and there are deer. Like, there's some wooded areas around here. There are deer that just decide they're going to come in every winter, and they live like in our neighbors underneath these big pine trees. But they always are like in my yard. Sometimes, like, I'll wake up in the morning and there's like three of them just laying in our backyard, just like relaxing. Like, they feel very safe on our property. Last we also have bunnies, like, and they've had babies and they live like on my side. Like, I have a little like wildflower garden on the side of the house, and has lots of, it looks overgrown, but it's a beautiful chaos to me. And they live in there. But I hadn't seen them in a few days, so I thought to myself, as I'm speaking out to the universe, I haven't seen you guys. I'm a little worried because we've had some disappear from hawks. Can you come see me so I know that you're here? Like, next day, there's three in my backyard, like, and I walk out and they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, they don't move. I can walk up to them. They don't run. Like, they're not afraid of me. And then I do stuff with my cats where it's like I haven't seen one in a while. Like, they're solitary. And I'll think to myself, come see me. Come curl up. I haven't seen you in a while. And, within like minutes, one's coming up, and curling up next to me. So these things happen to me. Whether people consider that animal communication or not, I don't know. I do know people have like animal mediumship abilities. I don't think I'm at that point, but like, I remember when my cat, we had to get automatic feeders because one cat is like very food obsessed and will eat the other cat's food. The older cat is not the one that's food obsessed, and so she was very afraid of the feeder. And finally, like, I got to a point where I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to have these mental conversations with her and calm her down about this. And so I really focused in on like telling her this is just a regular food bowl. It makes noise, but it's safe. It's not going to hurt you. Give it a try. Give it a try. Give it a try. Give it a try. And like within like 5 seconds, she walks up to it and actually like slowly starts eating from it. And then from then on,
Oh,
she was fine. So, like, these are the types of things that I just look at it as like, this is just something that, John has passed down through his DNA to me,
mm-hmm,
that I do as well. But it's interesting to hear that's actually in my chart. So,
yeah, yeah. The other thing about this channel too is it's like connection to herbs and like how do you use herbs. So it's just very like connected to the natural world, animals and everything, everything that's in the natural world. So, yeah, I mean, and again, I think this is another good example of like, you don't have to become a animal communicator or an animal medium and like build some kind of business on this. Like, this is already playing out for you in a very natural way. It's just a natural thing for you to like telepathically communicate to animals. and then they respond to that. So
Yeah.
like there's nothing that you need to do. It's just highlighting for you, like, this is a theme that is present in your life, that you're learning about, that you're exploring, that you're, maybe interested in. And it's there to enhance your experience of life on earth. So that's what I would say with
Does.
that.
It gives me a little bit of magic.
Yes.
When I sit out
Mhm.
on my deck and I'm like, I haven't seen my hummingbirds, and here comes one racing over. It's like it makes my life feel magical. Um,
Totally. It's very
and
magical energy.
yeah, and that that makes the mundaneness of life so much better. And
Yes.
it also gives me such gratitude for you know this experience of being you know on earth,
Hmm.
in this body and in this life right now today.
Hmm. Oh, what a beautiful way to end this chart reading session. How did that feel for
Yes,
you?
it is. Oh, really great. It was great to like relearn some of the basics on my chart. And then to have you like, point out some things, in my intuitive gates, that I feel like I probably knew a little bit, but just to hear it more, out loud and like how I might experience it. Yeah, it's giving me a new perspective on things.
That's what it's all about.
Yep. Well, this was fun. Thanks, Jill. Um,
You're so welcome.
I can't wait till the next one.
Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Human Design Diaries. We hope that you love this episode as much as we did. Please take whatever resonates with you and leave the rest. If you're ready to dive deeper, visit our website at soulalignedsisters.com, where you'll find a wealth of free resources to support your journey. In our store, you can request a free human design chart, purchase low-cost reports, or even book a personalized reading with Jill. Be sure to explore our blog's Human Design Library, filled with stories and insights to help you get aligned. And don't miss our free Introduction to Human Design workshop, available through the Soul Aligned Sisters online school. Whether you're just starting out or deepening your knowledge, there's something there for everyone. Stay tuned for more episodes as we continue to uncover the magic of human design. Until next time, stay aligned and keep living your most magical life.